In this video, I will teach you a very simple chess strategy that you can use to win way more chess games. I also want to give a quick shout out to Chola Mundubwe, who commented that he started using this strategy and he won 5 games in a row after watching the video. So, what is this strategy? We will start by playing pawn to d4 because the London system has been requested by one of the subscribers. I will demonstrate my strategy by playing against the Sofia Chessbot 2300 rating. The opening itself doesn't matter too much. This strategy works against any opening, but we are going to be playing the London system here, and my strategy is mainly for the middle game. Sofia is a very solid chessbot immediately here, starting a counter-attack on our pawn. We are just going to try to be solid, try to be safe. I'm not looking for anything too spicy in the opening. I just want to develop my pieces, be safe, and then be able to castle. So that is basically all I want. So I will just be developing some pieces. It doesn't even really matter here. There's not really any theory we need to follow or anything. We just want to play the most logical looking moves, develop all of our pieces, put pawns in the center, develop our bishop, and then just castle. Our knight is being pinned. There are a couple of things we can do. We can either try to kick away their bishop. That's a possibility. We can also defend this with the bishop to e2. Which I think is a fine move. It is a little bit passive compared to what you would usually play in the London system, but it's a fine example of my thinking system. I just want to play the safest moves for now. I don't want to risk anything. So we are just going to play safe moves. If they capture, I recapture. It's all fine. And I castle. That's it. Very quickly, as you see, this is how I play openings. I didn't prepare any theory. I just play solid moves. And now we are in the middle game. And now we can start using my strategy. So, the middle game. The first thing that I want to do is, before I do anything, of course, look at my opponent's move. Not this. This. Drawing arrows, always very difficult. Bishop to d6. So always first I have to think, is there something I have to do about this? Because if I just ignore this, and I play rook to c1, thinking I'm going to put my rook here, it looks fine. Black can always take and then damage the pawn structure. And one thing that I like to do is I like to keep my pawns as solid as possible, which would mean here I would like to get a game where I basically don't have to move these pawns for a very long time. Because especially in openings like this, it's all about developing your pieces. It's not really about going for some crazy pawn push. So I want to keep my pawns safe. So probably there are two things I can do. I can either capture, which keeps everything safe, or I can move my bishop. For example, move it to g5, pin this knight, or I can also move it to g3. But then again, if they do take, yeah, it's not that this is a bad structure, but again, this is not our ideal pawn situation. So two options, I can either take, also develop their queen, or I can move. But I'm just going to not waste any time. I'm just going to capture here, and then now we can finally continue with my plan. So the plan is to look at our pieces and to see which piece we can optimize. So I'm going to quickly check my pieces. This bishop, it's a little bit strangely placed, but it is doing something. It's preventing this knight from potentially coming in, because otherwise there would be an attack. So I don't want anything to happen to this bishop. This knight is doing a good job right now, I think, because it's preventing this knight from jumping in. If I were to move this somewhere, I'm just going to make a random move. You can see that now, basically, black has a little bit more control. Okay, we can get something like this, but I just don't want my opponent to be able to infiltrate my position. So what am I looking at then? My queen and my rooks. I haven't used those yet, so that's very simple. I want to use my queen or my rooks. There is an open file here, meaning a file with no pawns. Why would we not place a rook there? I mean, that move doesn't lose anything. So I'm always looking for simple moves, things like this. It sounds incredible, but this is how you win chess games. You just find very logical moves that improve your position. Alright, the rook has been improved. Next up, our queen. Can we improve our queen? Well, you could say maybe queen to d2, maybe queen to e2. We can move our queen. But the big question is this really an improvement? Or am I just playing a move because it's my turn? Yeah, I'm just playing a move because it's my turn, so I'm not going to play anything. There's no real purpose here. More interesting would be something like queen to b3, attacking this weakness, but this always runs into some knight a5 issues. So my conclusion is, for now, I think this queen is fine, so we're not going to be using it. The rook is fine, and this rook, you could think about putting this here on e1. That would actually not be a terrible move if this was your idea, because of course maybe in the future we might be expanding here and pushing this. I'm going to see if I can make a move for my opponent. But the problem is that if we push this, all of a sudden our center becomes very weak. And as you can see, actually not this. Of course, they take queen. I mean, they have to trade first and then. So the problem with pushing e4 is that they can always take. Let's say we take the queen, trade, and then maybe they can take. Well, actually, I think it's best if they take, if they don't take like this, but if they take with the knight. And then, yeah, we just lost the pawn. So even though this move looks like it improves the position, the actual plan behind it doesn't work. So you always have to calculate so that you are actually finding good moves. Because our strategy is very simple. We just want to find the most solid move that we are 100% sure doesn't lose us the game, plus it also needs to improve something in our position. And this doesn't really improve much. So it's not the queen, it's not the rooks, it's not the bishop. Yeah, it's pretty easy. We just have to move the knight. It's the only piece we have remaining. How can we improve this knight? Well, I already see some squares where I would potentially like to put my knight. Those are weak squares, meaning they cannot be attacked by a pawn. And I have a pretty clear path to get there. So knight here to a4 is a very good plan. They move back the queen, not really sure why. Well, probably because they want to stop this, right? And now we can simply play knight to c5. You might be thinking, well, you're only going to be there temporarily, right? Yes, but there might be problems. For example, our rook is already here, so it's not very easy for black to push, and there might even be some tactics here. Also, my opponent played queen to d8. I don't think there's anything they can do. If they try to do this, of course, they lose the pawn as well. So basically, it was unstoppable for our opponent. They could not prevent us from doing this. And that's how I like to play chess. You see, our knight basically jumped like this, 2 ranks up. It cost us 2 moves, but yeah, the knight just has been improved. So that's already better for us strategically. Rook b8. I'm thinking if there is a plan here for my opponent. Let's say if we just make a random move. I don't really see anything. Because of course, if they push, they always run into some tactic like this, where they lose the knight. So yeah, I'm not really sure what this does for black. Always before I do something, I look at my opponent's move, of course, but I don't really see anything. So again, we have to improve our pieces. We just improved the knight, so it's fine. I'm going to leave it there. Same with this rook. Although there is something to be said about this rook, I will show you that as well. So what I am thinking about again is queen or rook. But of course it's not really a good plan right now. The entire position will collapse, and this is still a problem. If I just make a move, if we push e4, it's basically, yeah, the same as before. We can get something like this, and then we lose a pawn. So this rook, we don't need to touch it. So basically, well, the bishop, again, we can look at the bishop, but I already said this bishop is doing a good job. It's also stopping this together with the knight. All right. So what am I looking at? I'm looking at my queen and this rook. Those are the pieces I want to work with. I'm not even considering any pawn pushes here. I want to keep everything solid. So what are good moves? Well, again, queen b3, always interesting, but runs into knight a5. Doesn't really work. You could think, well, maybe I'm going to play queen c2. Wouldn't be the worst move, but usually you want your rook to be in front of your queen and not your queen in front of your rook. Because sometimes this can run into trouble if they put a rook here. And that's basically already a very solid plan, because if we just put a rook here, we can then put the queen behind it and put a different rook behind it. So very simple middle game plan, and I'm 100% sure this won't lose me the game. Black's playing e5, but just like e4 was bad for us, e5 is also bad for black. And my entire strategy basically revolves around just playing the solid moves, just optimizing your position, and your opponent will self-destruct. And black is already somewhat self-destructing here. Why? Well, actually, there's one more thing I have to show you. Let's just go back a little bit. One thing that I just saw now, I didn't see this before, is that we actually could potentially take take, and take. But of course, we also lose this pawn. I didn't think about this on the previous move, but suddenly, I don't know why, but suddenly I'm thinking, maybe there is something here as well. The only thing is, of course, we also have this problem in the center. One more thing that I think is also interesting is that in some lines we can probably play this. It's just the same idea, of course, this for black. So that's interesting. I think we had it on the previous move and we also have it here. But we also do have to watch out, of course, our opponent is trying to play here in the center. You could think about grabbing this pawn, but you're basically helping your opponent get a more active knight and also start an attack. Plus this knight is part of the problems for my opponent. The only thing we have to calculate is what is better, playing this and then we win a pawn in the center, or playing this and then we also win this pawn in the center. So the reason why suddenly this tactic is now way stronger is not because we are winning this pawn, because of course it's just a temporary win, we always lose this one. But the reason this finally works is because this knight is an important defender of this pawn. So in the trade we eliminate the knight and then we can take this. So because of that, I think it's more interesting to take here first. And I'm gonna see what they do. Okay. So they are grabbing in the center. I'm not really worried about this because one, I always know that first I can just recapture and nothing's going on. Second, I can always capture their rook as well and nothing is going on. So we have a bunch of moves to choose from here. This is really a tactical moment and that is where I like to really use my time and start calculating. So if we take the rook, they can take our rook and maybe we go for this. But if I look at this, first of all, my favorite pawn structure has been damaged a little bit. We are up a pawn for the endgame, but it might still be tricky with the queens and the rooks on the board. So I don't really like this line too much. You could also recapture here, but I do see something like this happening, and now basically we didn't win a pawn in the exchange, so this looks very much like a draw. So I'm wondering if there's anything else we can potentially play. One thing also very interesting, I mean, we are attacking this rook, they are attacking our rook. We might just be able to sacrifice a rook. Let me show you. I'll sacrifice. It's basically a type of trade because they have to take here, then we can take this, then they can take with the queen, and now we are still winning this pawn and this is not falling. So for example, queen to d4, and now everything is protected and we are just up a pawn as well. Plus this structure is very weak and I still have my ideal structure. So that is how I calculate true variations. I look at every single option, even a little bit of the strange options here, and now we just simply have this trade. They will take, we can take, and we get this endgame. And this is really how I like to play chess. We improve pieces, we play solid moves, our opponent will self-destruct. Low-rated opponents, that means they will give away a piece. Higher rated opponents, that means they will accidentally run into a losing endgame. And now this is a very simple endgame. We basically just have to attack this, and just keep building up the pressure. I think we might even just keep going, keep attacking. And very interesting as well, if they play this, we can most of the time just push b4, b5, and there's always some issue. If this knight was actually not here, let me just make a random move, we would even be able to go for this as well. But the knight is still preventing us from doing that. They are attacking the pawn. Now, of course, we are in the endgame, so now we are allowed to start pushing pawns, so I am going to push a pawn here. My queen is also protecting this. Black is trying to be tricky. They are giving away a pawn, but they're also winning this. So that's not what I want. I have to see if there's a better way. Maybe we just play c4, because at the end, if they take, we basically get a passed pawn. And creating a passed pawn is very important for the endgame. Like if they take, I can even take with the queen, and then we start trading a little bit, and the more trades, the better this endgame will be for us. And they push. But now that they pushed, they basically shifted the weakness. So the entire weakness was this file before, but now the weakness is this pawn. So we just have to shift our attack as well and see if we can attack this pawn. Still, it's protected twice. So I'm thinking if there's any good continuation here. This has to be winning for us, but how do we win this exactly? It's an interesting choice. Maybe there's no way to win the pawns, but at the same time, we still have these two pawns that we can start pushing, and black cannot really push anything. So I think it might be interesting to try to just push. And of course, this is a little bit of endgame experience. You just have to, yeah, get better at endgames for this. But it's also mostly about trying to find the most solid plan. I want to push. Let me just show you. I want to push this. But the problem is they will just take, and we lose it. So how can I push this without them grabbing? I basically need an extra protector on this square. Plus, I don't want to move my queen. My queen is basically stopping this. So I think this looks very interesting. This bishop, which still has to be improved, it's not really doing much, could potentially go here. The only problem is there might be a line where I allow them to jump in with the knight, but I can basically put my queen here and she's still somewhat taking a look at all of these squares. Even if they push, then they would be losing the rook. So yeah, I think this is an high level endgame move, this, but I think this is an interesting choice. Black's really trying to do everything they can to make sure that we cannot push. So again, a4, well, a4 would actually be possible, but we still got our queen attacked, and then we lose this. So we are still in trouble, but now we can improve the bishop again, and also make sure the knight cannot go here. And I think finally, after a bunch of endgame maneuvering, we should be able to start pushing the pawns, finally. So you see, it's really about patience as well. If you have the better position, you need to be patient. I don't know why they are doing this. They are basically giving us a free pawn. Yeah, a free pawn, but I know they can take this, but it doesn't really help because, of course, we are just pushing. We are just pushing, and this is immediately game over, I think. Yeah, it's game over. That's why I don't understand why they play this. Yeah, they can go in with the queen, but of course, this is protected. We have double pressure. Yeah, this is endgame, but this is very easy. And then we can make a second queen. They trade, I take, this is under attack. The only thing we do have to be careful for is here that we have back rank issues. So I am thinking about going in with the rook, but I always have to worry about checkmate. There is no checkmate here, of course, because, well, my bishop is guarding, and if they take, it's my turn first, so I will be able to play a checkmate. But it's very important once you are winning that you calculate moves like this so that you don't mess up. All right, we can take. This should be checkmate any moment. Check. Let's see where they go. I think there are multiple checkmates. This seems logical. Queen, rook. How do we get a checkmate? Maybe we can also activate the bishop. And now, oh, we actually have a pawn checkmate. Pawn to f. That's it. If you enjoyed this, subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.